Let me read to you a passage from the 4th chapter of St. Matthew's Gospel, verses 18 to 22. It's the Gospel for the feast of St. Andrew the Apostle on November the 30th. St. Matthew writes, "As Jesus was walking beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon called Peter and his brother Andrew. They were casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. 'Come, follow me,' Jesus said, 'and I will make you fishers of men.' At once they left their nets and followed him. Going on from there, he saw two other brothers, James the son of Zebedee and his brother John. They were in a boat with their father Zebedee, preparing their nets. Jesus called them, and immediately they left the boat and their father and followed him." That's from Matthew chapter 4, verses 18 to 22, for the feast of St. Andrew the Apostle on November the 30th. What does this suggest to us? Well, Abraham is acknowledged as one of the great religious founders of the world. Muhammad looked to him, as do, of course, those of the Jewish and Christian religions. When we look at the biblical account of Abraham's call, in, say, Genesis chapter 12, verses 1 to 3, we notice that embedded in that call is a mission to the world. God tells Abraham to go forth from his fatherland to a land he would show him. Then God tells Moses of his plan for him. "I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. All the communities of the earth shall find blessing in you." That is the mission that God has set himself, to bless the earth through Abraham and his posterity. So Abraham went as the Lord directed him. Abraham simply obeyed, and through his obedience God would bless the earth. Though there is a mission, it is God who prosecutes it, and not Abraham himself. Time and again in the history of God's chosen people, there is a growing prophetic awareness of the universal mission of the children of Israel. But the people themselves do not actively advance this universal mission. That is, as it were, God's business. Their task is to remain faithful to their calling of truly belonging to the one God of Israel and of obeying his commands. And in this they very often failed. If we take a different scenario, the non-Christian religions, the pattern is similar. Take the case of Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama. The evidence of the early texts suggests that Gautama was born in a community that was on the periphery, both geographically and culturally, of the northeastern Indian subcontinent in the 5th century. He abandoned the royal life and took up the spiritual quest of seeking a permanent solution to the problem of suffering. By his mid or late 30s, he had found his answer, attained enlightenment, had attracted followers, and founded a monastic order. He spent the rest of his life teaching the path of awakening that he considered he had discovered, travelling throughout the northeastern part of the Indian subcontinent, and dying at the age of 80. The great movement of Buddhism arose from him, but clearly he himself did not institute a religion of missionaries to the world. My point is that the general pattern with religions, including what are called world religions, is that their spread just happens. Their spread is not by original design. Muhammad did not instantly begin a missionary impulse. That came later, after his own position, his power, and his new religion were established in his region. But the case was very different with Jesus Christ. Our gospel passage today is taken from St. Matthew, and the public ministry of our Lord begins at the end of chapter 3 with his baptism. Thereupon, in chapter 4, and in quick succession, there is narrated the encounter with and rebuff of Satan, his departure for Galilee, and the commencement of his public ministry. From the first, Christ actively seeks disciples. And this is not a notable characteristic of the prophets before him. Disciples gather around them, around the prophets, but they do not seem to seek them out. Moreover, the disciples of Christ, immediately and from the first, are told that they will have a mission to others. This is the notable thing in our gospel passage today. We read that Christ, walking by the Sea of Galilee, saw two brothers, Simon and Andrew, and we think of Andrew today, and he called on them to follow him. Now, this is not unlike the call of Abraham, which was to leave all and do what God would direct. But Christ immediately announces in his very call that their call would be essentially a missionary one. Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. Matthew chapter 4, verse 18 to 22. Now this, I think, is a distinctive feature of Jesus Christ as founder of a world religion. From the very first, he actively calls to himself disciples, members of his religion, and these disciples, from the very first, and by design, are on notice as having a share in his mission. It is to be a religion on the move, a religion engaged in a massive outreach, a religion for the world. And its members are to be essentially missionary like their founder, sharing in his mission. They know from the very first that their following of Jesus Christ would involve their active and ongoing attempt to bring others to the knowledge and love of him. As disciples, they would have the mission to make disciples. And just before our Lord ascended into heaven, as risen from the dead, he told them that this mission was to the world. Make disciples of all the nations, he told them. It is an essential note of the Christian religion that it is universal. It is missionary for the world. Christ's one true church is a universal one, and by original design it has an inner impulse to spread everywhere and to be everywhere. While God the Son was born a Hebrew, a member of God's chosen people, his mission was to become, as it were, a Briton, a Greek, a German, a Syrian, Chinese. By his very humanity, there is a sense in which Christ has united himself to every man and woman. But much more so does he do this by means of baptism, the baptism of the believer, which incorporates him into the church and therefore into Christ. Let each of us, on the feast of St. Andrew the Apostle, take up our mission of bringing Christ to others. If we are not missionary, we fail in our faith.